Hello and welcome to WriteCast Between the Pages. I'm Florianne, your co-host for this episode.
And I'm Melissa, your other co-host.
And in this episode, we're really excited to be joined by author Naomi Gibson. Naomi grew up... Oh, hi Naomi!
Interrupting already, sorry.
No, absolutely fine. We got the hello in before the introduction. And now I get to introduce Naomi and her wonderful writing. So she grew up in Cheshire and is now based in Glasgow. In Scotland. Her childhood was spent with her nose in a book and her hands on a sketchpad, constantly in search of adventure and new worlds. Encouraged by her family to be creative, she developed a love for writing at a young age, something that never left her. She studied art history at the University of Manchester. Whilst there, she met her husband, someone who continues to tell her all about the latest advancements in AI, space, and consumer technology, even when she's not listening. Every Line of You, a young adult romantic psychological thriller about artificial intelligence, is her first novel, and proof she does in fact listen to her husband. I really like that last bit of your bio, that's great. Well, it's lovely for you to join us for this episode, it's really exciting.
Thank you so much for having me.
And your book sounds really, really interesting, and I'm sure you'll be telling us a lot about it in this episode. Oh, I love the cover as well, it looks great.
Yeah, the cover is amazing.
And this is the sprayed edge version, guys, yeah.
Oh, jealous.
Limited edition.
That looks really, really good. That looks awesome. Yeah, it looks really good, and it sounds with the AI theme as well. Sounds really interesting. So I'm sure we'll talk about that later in the episode. But I guess we kind of found out a little bit in that intro. But I just want to know a bit more about why you started writing. Your origin story, basically. So yeah, if you want to tell us a bit about that.
Sure. Well, yeah, like I said in my bio, I have definitely always written. I actually grew up without a TV. I didn't have a TV until I was like 11. So books were like a huge part of my life. And going to the library after school was like the best thing ever because you could get out like 10 books. So that was always really exciting. So yeah, books were always like a massive part of my life. But I kind of forgot about writing for like a really long time. And then when I was maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, I was in my career and I suddenly realised I was actually like quite unhappy. And I started looking for like a creative outlet again. And there was like this local writing class at this college. So it was like a writing class at this local college near me. And it was like once a week and it was really, really cheap. It was a bargain actually. It was like 90 quid for 10 lessons. So I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I started going along to that. And that was probably where I learned how to write really, where, you learn all about character development and plot arcs and things like that. So that was probably where I learned all the technical stuff. But yeah, and that was, so yeah, I think I just went back to writing as like this massive creative outlet for myself, to be honest. Because I don't know, I was just in a career and I was just like, where am I going with this career? I need to do something creative because I think all writers are creative, and I knew I had that in me and I wanted to express it. So yeah, that was what drew me back.
That's amazing.
That is really, really amazing, and especially well, thank God for that course that you did as well.
It was the best money I've ever spent, honestly.
Doesn't. And I suppose as well, when you started writing and why you started writing. But I guess a question that I suppose is linked to that is, what motivates you to write now, seeing as that's how you started. But why do you continue? Because obviously for a lot of writers, they might start, but how do you keep going?
Yeah, sure. So I think after I'd done this course for like a couple of years, and then I wrote my first book, and I think I just suddenly realised this is actually what I want to do. Do you know what I mean? And I think I was like, it must sound really arrogant. I was like, I'm not bad at it. Do you know what I mean? I can write a book.
I think we're all a little bit arrogant if we think we can write a book. And I don't think that's a bad thing to admit. I think that's okay.
Humble brag. So I was like, I could, I'm enjoying it and I know I'm not terrible at it. So I kept going. And And sorry, I wrote a few notes. I hope you don't mind if I just refer to them. As a person, I think I'm quite like goal driven, and I quite like setting goals for myself and achieving them. And after having done these writing courses for a couple of years and had written 2 books, I was like, I want to get on a shelf now, and that was my motivation. It was for me for a long time just something that I wanted to achieve and something that I wanted to do. So I went hunting for an agent and things like that. So getting a book on a shelf was always really important to me. Mm-hmm. But why I keep doing it, I think, actually what draws me back to it again is the fact that I really like the psychology of books, like why characters do what they do, you know? And I think I like adding in that element into my own writing about sort of weird situations, and then exploring why people do what they do and why they're sort of justifying to themselves why it's okay to do certain things. Because a lot of the characters that I end up writing are anti-heroes or like bad guys. And it's quite fun to work out their motivations. And I think that is why I keep coming back to it. It's just like lacing in that emotional and psychological motivation for characters. I find that so interesting, and I just want to keep doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
that's really
interesting. Does that make sense?
No, that was a great answer. And I think as well, you kind of covered it a little bit with motivation, but are you the sort of writer that needs to write at a certain time of day, or do you write every day, or do you just do it in big bursts? And when you are writing, you were talking about your characters and how they come together. Are you a plotter or are you a pantser? Definitely folds into that question. So yeah, plotter or pantser, and when, how do you write?
Okay. I am one of those people who falls into the cracks. I'm kind of a pantser, kind of a plotter, probably more of a pantser. But the book, Every Line of You, is I pants that.
Okay.
Pretty hardcore in a hot and messy 2 weeks. Because I got the idea from a writing class actually, and we were doing character development, and we all got given like these little bags full of items, and we had to create a character around these items, and that was how I came up with my main character. And then I went home, and I was just so possessed by this character that I just went on a page. And then I got my first draft out in about 2 weeks, which has never happened again, by the way. So there's just that one time I had that perfect writing experience, and the rest of the time it's like been horrible. But that was really good fun. So that was a total pants. And I think since then, and because I've kind of again, another humble brag, kind of grown in skill in that I know more what I'm doing. Yeah. Probably. I tend to sort of plot a little bit and then go and write it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I kind of fall into that. I love pantsing because if I know how a book happens, if I'm writing a book and I know how it's going to end, then it doesn't interest me. So I like to know. I like it to be a surprise for myself whilst I'm writing it. But I also, in order to get words on the page, you have to kind of know a little bit about what's going to happen. Yeah. So I have to plot a little bit.
You're a plantser.
But I do. Yeah.
You're a plantser. Okay.
The flashlight method, but I'm not sure. I think it's like where you kind of plot a little bit. Yeah, that was what I heard this. I was like, oh, that might be me. I'm not sure. Where like you plot a little bit and then you write those bits you've plotted, and then you're like, oh, what happens next? And you plot a bit more, then you write that, and then you plot, and you just keep going until you get to the end of the book. So that might be me. I'm not sure.
That sounds like me, to be honest with you. I'm glad there's a name for it, because I also like plantser.
Yeah, plantser. I just thought,
I like it.
That would be their romance name, plantser. If plotting and romance, if plotting and pantsing had a romance, they would be the plantsers. Right? So, and that's how Naomi wrote her romance story, is by sort of, didn't you say you just wrote it all in like 2 weeks in like this big hurry, but also you had thought about it. Obviously you've got this idea at this class. So I suppose that time you weren't writing particular times of day. You weren't particularly thinking, let's set down this many, because you did it in one big chunk.
Yeah, I was really lucky at the time because I was working part-time. And I think I had just finished on like a Wednesday evening, and then I had my writing class, and I just came home, and I was like, I've got like 4 days stretched out before me. So I wrote like as much as I could, and then obviously worked my hours for my job, and then the rest of the time I was just writing. Excuse me. And then I woke up at like I remember I was lying in bed and I was waiting for my husband to fall asleep, and I was like, I'm gonna get out of bed right now. And so I waited for him till he was definitely asleep, and then I crept out the bedroom and wrote till like 2 or 3 in the morning. So I was knackered. But and then after the 2 weeks after I wrote the end, I was like, oh, it's done. Collapse.
And did you take a break then, or did you move through?
Yeah,
You then get your break. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not that much of a machine.
Yeah, you could write like 26 books a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Bang them out every 2 weeks, you know.
Yeah, just another one to knock it out, you know. But in terms of time of day and everything, I think I prefer writing in the morning after I've first woken up, because I feel like as you're asleep, things kind of percolate in your subconscious. Yeah. And you can just, when you get to your laptop, for me anyway, when I get to my laptop, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I know what I'm doing now. So I think I need the evening and sleep time to, I don't know, refresh.
Yeah, yeah.
I find that if I come to work in the afternoon, I don't know why. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes the day just don't click, and the afternoon's one for me. I've got to do it in the morning. If I don't get anything done in the morning, I know I'm not going to write that day, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's called morning pages. I think that's the artist's way. It's called morning pages. Yeah, where you wake up and even if you're not writing your book, you just write down everything in your head that morning because you are more refreshed.
Learning all the technical language, yeah.
No, yeah, flashlight method, morning pages. We're just running our own course here. It's fine. Sign up. And also, actually, Naomi, I wanted to ask you. So I follow you on Twitter. I have done for a long time. And I saw the picture you posted of all of your drafts. You posted a couple of months ago, I think it was now, for Every Line of You. And I know I saw different titles on there, and I saw obviously all these different like piles of paper. And so I wanted to ask, especially for people who are writing a book and thinking about what happens when you get to the publisher, or even you get an agent, so it must be perfect because you've got an agent, right? So a publisher's just going to pick it up and print it next week because there can't be any more to do. So yeah, what happens? The dream. So I was going to ask, how much does it change, or have you found in your experience it's changed from like that first draft, that 2 weeks, like get everything out, over to obviously I assume you've got finished copies now and it's going to be coming out in August. So how much has it changed?
Interesting question. Whenever I first wrote the book, it had a different ending, and it was very much the ending that I wanted the book to have, because I was in that hot and messy 2 weeks, and I was like, this is perfect, this is gold, this is what's going to be, you know, and then you get feedback, and particularly when I was on submission, I had that wrong ending, and because I was quite emotionally attached to the book, I was getting a lot of rejections, but I didn't know why. And then I sent it off to a beta reading company, and they were like, you might want to think about changing your ending. And I was like, no. Like, their advice was absolutely right. And then I actually submitted to my agent, Jo Molt at Skylark, and she basically rang me and said, you know, your book's great, but your ending, like, as a reader, I was expecting something else to happen. And I was like, okay. So that's like 2 professionals who've taken the time to actually tell me what's going on. I think by that point, I was probably on about draft 4 or 5, just for me.
Right.
So I think by then it had gone through 2 title changes just for myself. Because it started off as Henry, and then it was I Henry, and then for a little while it was I Lydia.
Right.
Good is it? And then so Jo was like, you know, as a reader I was expecting this to happen, if you want to do that, you know, write it and then come back to me. And it took me a long time to actually realise that is probably what I need to do. And again, it goes back to my goal that I've wanted to get on a shelf, and I was like, okay, so if this is what is going to get me on a shelf, I need to cut that emotional tie and make that change and just see how I feel about it. And so I did it, and for a while I was like, this really isn't what I wanted to happen, but it absolutely makes so much more sense. Like, it just does. I think. So yeah, then I submitted it back to Jo, and she was like, "This is great, I'll sign you," which is perfect. That's kind of what you want to hear, isn't it? So that was great. And then she sent me a really long editorial letter of other changes to make, which, to be fair, she did warn me was coming in our phone call. She was like, "Okay, I can see you've worked hard. How do you feel about working even harder?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, let's do it. Let's get on a shelf." And she asked me to cut out 20,000 words and to generally pick up the pace of my book. So there's a lot of other changes in that as well. So that was a huge edit. And I think by that point that might have been draft 7. And then that was the draft that she sent out to publishers. And then obviously they had, after I signed with Chicken House, they obviously had their own edit that they wanted me to do. So it's probably 8 or 9 drafts I think I've been through. Yeah,
that is pretty epic.
I did well because I only had one big edit to do for Chicken House, and after that I was on to line edit, so that was quite encouraging. Finally the book was in the right place, and we're just down to kind of word choice and full stop and stuff.
It's finally there. And it's amazing too as well, because I think people wonder if an agent gets back and says, "Oh, maybe if this, get back to me," and sometimes people think it's a bit of a platitude, but it's nice to hear that Joanna said that, and then you got back and she was like, "Yes, this is the book I wanted." That's amazing.
Yeah, she's great. She's the perfect mix of honesty and optimism, I think. Which is what you need in an agent,
And is it multiple points of view? Every line of view.
No,
I was just wondering with Lydia and Henry, and you weren't sure. Yeah.
It's all told from the point of view of Lydia.
Okay.
But very, very quickly, a little spoiler. She
spoiler.
Fast forward 30 seconds, guys. She injects his computer chip into her arm, and then he's in her head, and he can talk to her in her head. So he becomes very much like another main character pretty early on. So it's all told from her point of view.
Right.
So he is like feeding directly into her brain, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, it's like writing a book. Just inject that chip into our brains and then type it out.
And also, I thought the other thing that was really interesting, and I think, that, like Melissa said, it will reassure people listening that, if an agent shows interest, also that they'll, they might sign you and then they'll work with you on the thing that they might have pointed out as a thing to improve on. But also, it was really interesting when you said that you had to sort of cut a bit of an emotional tie with the book in order to make it that sellable book. Because, I mean, definitely for me, there's been times with writing where I'm like, my heart says this, but maybe my head says something else. Like, that's a really interesting sort of process you had to go through. That must have been quite difficult to...
Yeah, it was a big lesson for me to learn, I think. It's like, what do you really want? I think I asked myself that. I was like, what do I want? Do I want this book? I've written this book, and it's got the ending that I wanted it to have. But then I was like, or I can get it on a shelf, and I can take, editorial professional advice from multiple people and give it a different ending, But yeah, I wrote it and it didn't taste right. But then I was like, now I look at the book and I'm like, it makes so much sense, and it feels right for the book now. The other ending, I look back at it, and I think, like, what an idiot I was for writing that.
No, you wouldn't be the book where you got it to if you hadn't, I suppose, written that first ending. And then now maybe gone on that journey with it, because that's a real killing your darling story, it sounds like.
It is. Yeah.
They got you to a really good place in the end, so that is a success story in the end, which is good. That's amazing. Well, I think we'll go on to the quiz, because we've heard some really awesome stuff from Naomi, and your book sounds amazing. And I'm sure it'll be and I just think the AI focus sounds really fascinating. And now I've heard that, bit of a spoiler. That spoiler's really teased it. It's amazing. It is, yeah. That was a juicy spoiler. This is also why I like having Melissa as co-host, because I don't think Stuart would have said juicy spoiler, but Melissa's come out with that phrase, so
He has children. You can't say juicy spoiler.
Yeah, for less clean podcast content, vote for Melissa as co-host. So we'll go on. Yeah, pause
Stuart. We'll let him out from under the cupboard soon, in the cupboard under the stairs. He can come out.
Well, we are going to have a children's book quiz to end the episode. So I think, Melissa, you're going to be our quiz master. Am I correct on that? Yes.
I am. Yes, I am going to be the quiz master, and all of my questions are based on YA romance books. Fun. Yeah, because I was thinking, every line of you, and I thought, right, okay. I was actually going to do teen robots, but there aren't as many as there should be. That's all I'm saying. It's not as much AI as there should be in YA. So we're going with romance.
Yes.
Okay, is everyone ready? So we're going to just, I think we just usually do an honor system, don't we? Where just, I'll pick somebody alternately each time to answer first, and the other person has to be super honest and say whether they would have given that answer or not. Okay, cool. Okay. Right, question 1. In the Hunger Games, when trying to get to know each other better, Katniss says her favourite colour is green. What is Peter's favourite colour? We'll go to our guest first, Naomi.
He says orange, and then he says not like bright orange, like a sunset orange.
I am just gonna give that point to Naomi because my colour was wrong, and B, I couldn't directly quote it. So
Naomi gets like 1,000 points.
You know your genre.
No, it's great. Exactly. Brilliant. Oh my god, that was amazing. Okay. Cool. Question 2. Come on, Florian, you've got to pick it up, really. Okay. In Noah Can't Even, by Simon James Green, what is the name of Noah's friend that kisses him at the party?
Oh, no. This Florian is a face of I don't know. Oh my god, Stuart, I wish you were doing this instead. Daniel. This is so embarrassing. Daniel.
Naomi, what are you thinking?
I can't remember. I've read that and I can't remember. I don't know. I'm looking at my
Can I cheat? Is
Turn
there
off
a
the
way?
video and run off and
yeah. I'll just be right back. I can't remember. It's gone. I can't.
No? It's Harry. Harry was it's so sweet. You guys haven't read that. Oh my gosh, so good. Right, okay, moving on. Question 3. When in Twilight Bella moves to Forks to live with her father before meeting Edward for the first time, where has she moved from? And it is Naomi first to answer.
She's moved from Arizona, yeah, and she doesn't like any cold, wet thing.
Who does? Such a weird thing to say.
Is it Phoenix?
Florian, what are you going to say?
I'm going to be a bit more specific to try and get that point back.
Oh, I was thinking, yep, and I think that's fair. I was about to say, yeah, if you had Phoenix, Arizona, that is right. Okay, more even keel now, guys, more even keel. Okay, question 4. So in To All the Boys I've Loved Before, who sends Lara Jean's letters to all of her old crushes? Who steals the hat box and sends out the letters? And it is
I haven't actually read this. So when you say who, I don't know whether it's just go for character role or actual name. Cousin? I don't know. Cousin.
And Naomi? You remember?
Well, like Florian, I haven't read it, but I have watched it. Sorry, Jenny.
It is an excellent adaptation.
It is. Yeah. It looks amazing. It was amazing. I think it's her sister. Is it her younger sister?
Oh, that's right. So younger sister Kitty. Yep, and it's the same as in the books. So
I'm really showing myself up that so far Florian, Twilight is the only one that I've got a point on.
We can't.
It's fine.
Well, all to play for. Question 5, because technically nobody actually said Kitty's name, so let's say all to play for in question 5. Okay, here we go. Okay. So recently, a few months ago, BBC adapted the award-winning dystopian star-crossed lovers romance book Noughts and Crosses.
Oh, okay.
Who wrote Noughts and Crosses?
Oh, okay, I know that one.
And and it is, oh gosh, who is it to answer first?
Oh,
Unless you
no.
both know and you just want to shout it at the
Mallory
same time.
Blackman. Yay!
Mallory Blackman.
Yes,
Yay,
Mallory
amazing.
Blackman. Amazing.
I thought,
it's an easy one to finish off.
yeah,
That was
I
pretty
think,
evenly paired, but I think Naomi
yeah,
probably
100%.
did
Yeah,
justice
you can be
out.
crowned
Oh,
the
yeah.
quiz
Cheers.
winner of this
Oh,
episode. Oh, well, that was amazing. You did a really good job, and I'm very embarrassed by my lack of YA romance knowledge. So I will.
Got to get back
Yes,
into it.
exactly.
Grab
I'll add that
Naomi's
to my
book
list
in August,
alongside.
Yeah. It'll be on the next
Yeah,
quiz,
it will be on
It
the
will.
next
It'll be on the
quiz.
next, very
Yeah,
next quiz.
Hint to our next guest. Get reading it because it's going to be a question. So. Well, thank you so much for joining us for the episode, Naomi. It was really nice to have you, and it was also really fun to have Melissa as our co-host for the first and hope not the last episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, hint, hint. Thank you so much, and hope you all enjoyed listening to our episode. And obviously, if you want to join us on Twitter to chat about it, we'd love to hear your thoughts about the episode. Any ideas you might have about what you've listened to. Are you a plotter, a pantser, or a plantser, as is our new term on this episode? And also, have you yourself gone through anything that Naomi might have gone through, cutting those emotional ties with your book, and so on? So we'd love to hear from you. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next episode.